Hello, RWorld, and welcome back to another episode of RWorldTalk. We have a special guest with us this morning. We're meeting with Adache. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Appreciate you having me here.
Very nice to have you here. Adam, we're going to do a deep dive into what's going on in Broward County and more specifically Pompano Beach today. Cavache Properties, undoubtedly making an impact in many areas of Broward County, but specifically you're involved in a massive undertaking to redefine Pompano Beach. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what's going on?
Sure. And just to clarify, the city of Pompano Beach and the Community Redevelopment Agency are the ones really involved in the massive undertaking. We're just one of several developers that are building projects within the redevelopment corridor and the redevelopment areas that they're, of that undertaking.
Sure.
But yeah, we've been developing properties for quite some time in Pompano. Starting with the East CRA by the beaches several years ago, and what you see at the Pompano Beaches, all the restaurants by the pier and everything, what you see today was really just a vision when we started building in Pompano. We were doing for sale townhome products, for sale condominium projects, and fast forward several years to where we are today. Most of our main focus is in the West CRA now as opposed to the East CRA where the beaches were. And which is essentially Pompano's downtown. The downtown of Pompano Beach is really broken down into three main development districts. You have Old Town, which is directly north of Atlantic Boulevard and east of Dixie Highway. You have Civic Commons, which is just south of Atlantic Boulevard and east of Dixie Highway, and that's currently where City Hall sits right now.
Okay.
And then west of Dixie Highway, you have the Innovation District, which is another big part of that massive undertaking that the city's taking on. So, more specifically, our group, Cavache, is focusing on Old Town, which is the historic arts and entertainment district. That's the part that's east of Dixie, north of Atlantic. We're big believers in the Old Town area. It's probably the most advanced of the three main downtown districts. And it's, in our opinion, destined to become the epicenter of dining and entertainment in Pompano Beach.
For sure.
Right now, there's a new restaurant that just opened up, South Bar and Kitchen.
That is a great spot.
Have you been there?
Yeah, I have been there. I happen to live right down the street in Garden Isles, okay, so I spend a lot of time in Old Town.
Good Southern cuisine and great vibe, great atmosphere. They have the backyard with an outdoor bar, live music, so that's a great spot. The Vault is a new restaurant that's coming soon, close to South. There's a wine bar that's about to open over there.
Okay.
And there's several other restaurants and entertainment spots in the planning phases right now. So we just finished a 281 unit project directly east of South, and that's a mixed use development project. We just started moving residents in that project. We have still probably a couple months left of cleanup construction and punch work on that. We're leasing ground floor restaurant and retail space there as well. And then directly east of Old Town Square, we just purchased 5 acres of property directly east. We just got another 319 units approved on that property. That will also have ground floor retail restaurant space as well. And that was only on a portion of that property. So we're still trying to figure out the additional phases for that property, but we're considering some for sale townhome components, possibly for sale condominium components, or a mixed use of leasing for rent and for sale.
Okay.
Properties like that. And we're also, we just got an LOI from a pickleball operator to lease a portion of the property just to the north of us, which we think is a great concept. What they want to do is a small bar, restaurant, entertainment facility with like 15 indoor and outdoor pickleball courts.
Interesting.
So we think, which is obviously a great benefit for our communities, but probably just as good of a benefit for the neighborhood as a whole.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime you take a drive down Federal Highway going past Pompano Municipal Park and you see those pickleball courts, there's got to be 1,000 people that are either playing on the courts, waiting to play on the courts. I mean, that just seems to be like the hub of activity. Pickleball is just taking the world by storm.
I read an article the other day that just said there's not enough pickleball courts right now and they can't keep up with the demand. So
wow,
it is a great idea.
So the Vault restaurant, I think that it's great that you took the charm of an old historic landmark that was First Bank of Pompano, and kept the vault in the restaurant. Was that tell us a bit about that? Was that challenging? How vital is preservation, obviously, with all the...
Well, the vault restaurant is not our development.
Okay.
So just to clarify, the vault, but the preservation that they're doing there with the existing vault from the original bank is definitely, something we believe is very important in development, the preservation that they're doing. So even though that's not our development, it's in the area of Old Town, and obviously one development complements the other. But in terms of preservation, I mean, it's definitely important in all aspects of development. I commend them for doing that. Preservation promotes sustainability, it minimizes waste, and at the same time, it kind of brings a younger generation back to gives them a better understanding of the past, basically. Right. So definitely, we're big believers in preservation if it's done right, if it's done with the right project, the right architecture, the right neighborhood.
Right.
It's not always done right, but we're definitely big believers in preservation. As a matter of fact, the property directly to the east, the 5 acres that I just mentioned that we purchased, it was a church property. So basically, it was it had church, it had a school on it.
Okay.
And
I was just going to ask you, where in the world did you find 5 acres of property?
Yeah, it's very, very rare.
East side.
It seems to be churches these days, right?
Yeah, right.
But basically, the main sanctuary we just demoed, and some of the other buildings will be in the process of demoing soon. But on the southwest corner of that property, there's an existing historic chapel that was built in the 1930s.
Okay.
So we're actually relocating that chapel, and we're taking that about 2 miles north to Centennial Park by the Sample McDougal House, which is also another historic structure.
Right.
So, I mean, like I said, when it's done right, we're big believers in preservation.
Okay.
And of course, that makes the city happy, and obviously, it's important to them, and it's important to us as well.
Yeah, it's important to the residents to a lot of those historical properties. People have a lot of fond memories of the history and what all took place there, and the stories behind it. And a lot of times it's a shame to see something go away. So it's nice when people take the time to try and save as much of that as possible.
Absolutely.
We're still seeing significant migration patterns from people coming from the Northeast, people coming from California, to right down here to South Florida. So with all the new development, what do you think is making Pompano more attractive than, let's say, Fort Lauderdale or Boca?
I mean, I guess for us, what we really like about Pompano is in addition to all of the redevelopment going on, I think it's the overall master plan for that redevelopment, the people that are driving the bus on that master plan. There's many areas in many cities, and I won't name names, and not all, obviously, but that just have redevelopment occur wherever the developer wants to do development.
Sure.
And it doesn't always make sense. I think Pompano Beach is a very well thought out strategy for their development. They're keeping the density in the high dense areas that they've designated for those high dense areas. And as an example, I mean, the beaches are on fire right now, right? That's been happening for quite a while. You have the Ritz-Carlton coming in, you have the Waldorf Astoria coming in, a lot of luxury product coming in, but even so, it's not towards the end of the development process. I mean, we're still at the early phases, so there's still a lot of redevelopment opportunities out there in Pompano.
Right.
And then when you move west to the downtown district, there's even more. I mean, you have large development plays all the way down to small retail, small commercial plays in the corridor around where all the development's happening, and even down to single-family home in that fourth district that I mentioned, which was all the surrounding neighborhoods,
right,
to all these downtown districts. And as the development and the density occurs in those districts, it will continue to elevate the residential neighborhoods. So, I think that typically when you have all this vigorous development going on in cities, and it's been going on for quite some time, it slowly reaches an end where there's not that much development left. So I do think that being at an earlier stage, Pompano is probably a better investment opportunity because there's a lot more redevelopment opportunities out there.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm a Pompano resident myself, so whenever I see all the things that are happening, I mean, the changes that have happened to the beach in the last few years have just been really eye-opening. It's incredible seeing that Pompano was sort of a little bit of a sleeper community, and now we've got world-class dining, we've got world-class beaches and the pier, and to see the stuff that's happening in the new downtown area is really exciting. It's exciting to know that people are investing in Pompano Beach. So outside of the appeal and charm, what kind of demographic do you see interested in your residential properties or your residential offerings that are coming up? Are they geared towards working class professionals, or are they geared towards families?
It really depends on the projects we're developing at the time.
Okay.
So for our mixed use or our rental projects, I mean, we target more of the young professional.
Okay.
Although since COVID and since a lot of the migration that you mentioned that's coming in, I mean, we have, a slightly different demographic than we're used to seeing in some of those rental properties. We have everyone from even baby boomers. We have a couple people that are in there now waiting for their condominium, their luxury condominium, to be finished on the beach, and they thought Old Town might be a cool place to live in the meantime.
Right on.
And then we have baby boomers where their sole goal is to just travel around the world, and they don't necessarily want to buy a place, so they just want a place to call home and come back 2-3 months out of the year.
Right.
And
lock the key and go.
Lock the key and go, and we're seeing small families come there as well. So, I mean, I would still say predominantly we're targeting the young professional, but it's a little more diverse than we originally thought.
Okay, very interesting to hear. And every time I ask a question similar to that, I always get a different answer, and I guess it just depends on where people are seeing their different demographics coming from and what sort of products are available. But that's an interesting take. So
for our for sale products, sorry to interrupt you.
Go for it.
For sale products, the demographic's going to be different. So whenever we have that, we target. It's usually more of a luxury for sale project.
Okay.
So you're going to see probably a higher percentage of the baby boomers or the retirees and stuff like that.
Okay. So very interesting. So South Florida in general is obviously in need of some affordable housing, especially in Broward County. We've got a major affordable housing crisis that's happening. I love that you're offering some affordable solutions with Old Town Square, but are there any plans to have some high-end residential development coming in, or are there any projects that obviously you had mentioned Ritz-Carlton, Waldorf Astoria, but anything else that's going on that real luxury?
Well, there's a lot of luxury going on in the beach, but in terms of the area and the downtown where we're doing projects right now, I do see, I mean, just by nature of that kind of the evolution of creating the density and getting the density to the location, I definitely see more of the luxury for sale projects coming to the downtown. So as an example, if you look at Fort Lauderdale and Flagler Village several years ago, when they started allowing the density and the code, essentially changed to allow a lot of this density, the first people to come in were apartment developers, apartments. Right. Some of them didn't even finish construction on the apartments, and they converted them to condos. Most of them remained apartments, but as the apartments continued to fill up, the demand kept getting bigger and bigger, and eventually you had the for sale developers coming in. Some of them were the same developers, just offering different products. Some of them were new developers. But as the density continues to increase, so does the demand. And eventually you'll see condos, you'll see townhomes follow suit right behind the apartment projects. So we would consider doing that in the same location as our buildings start to fill up, and I know other developers would as well. I mean, if you look at Fort Lauderdale as an example again, several years ago there was only apartments. Now you have luxury condominiums going on in the downtown, and you'd probably be hard pressed to find a 1-bedroom unit for less than $1 million these days.
Right.
So,
if you build it, they will come. We've got people that are already seeing how beautiful the beach is, and once we've got a bit of a downtown core with an entertainment district that people could actually live in a nice development, high-end development, and still be able to walk to all the bars and restaurants like they can at the beach. I think it's going to be definitely something that would create some buzz and bring some people into the downtown core. So with more people comes more business, obviously. As you know, Broward County is already congested. So is the city working on a plan that you know of that is going to consider mobility and parking issues as well?
Yeah, I know the city is, as part of their overall master plan, that definitely, mobility is a huge part of that. Parking's a huge part of it. It really has to be. I know that, from a smaller scale, if you've heard of the circuit, the Pompano circuit.
Yep.
So it's an electric transportation option, basically, environmental friendly transportation option. And that started in the east area. It started in the beaches, and that's where it's continuing. It would, it essentially allows users to download an app and call for a ride from different, point A to point B, or different entertainment spots such as restaurants, the beaches, the shopping stores and stuff like that, grocery stores and stuff like that. So I know the eventual plan is, as downtown continues to grow and to flourish, is to add the different routes for the circuit to that. So that would be one important, start for the mobility.
Sure.
Long-term plan for the mobility, I know Pompano's really been pushing a commuter train station for quite a while. So if you look at in Old Town, they've actually identified 2 potential locations to have that train station.
Okay.
And again, that initially would be a commuter station, but the ultimate goal of most cities these days is to get a Bright Line stop, right?
Right.
And you can't do that unless you have the density. So I think that I don't see that. I mean, I definitely see that as a possibility in the future as the plan comes together for Pompano, and we continue to add the density and we continue to add the restaurants and stuff like that. So we'll see. But I think the Old Town district and the downtown is geographically speaking, it's interesting because just to the north of it, you have the Pompano Air Park, or the Executive Airport, and it's one of the few executive airports that still has land to develop on it, right? And then you have, just to the west of it, you have the train tracks. And Pompano is unique in another way where we have a railroad spur connecting 2 different train tracks. Not many cities have that. So there's even been talk, speaking of mobility, to utilize that spur to connect Old Town with some of the west developments that are going on in Pompano, such as the Cordish Companies is doing the project, the casino project with Caesars Entertainment, and
Sure.
certain neighborhoods out there will be able to come and dine in Pompano and vice versa if they connect the train tracks. I'm not saying that that's solidified or happening right now, but Pompano has that ability, and there's been discussions on it. So I know the city is definitely considering mobility and as part of its overall plan, and just by nature of increasing the density. Once density gets to a certain point, it actually helps alleviate some traffic issues as well, because now the downtown becomes more walkable. Now you have grocery stores that you can walk to, possibly even your place of employment that you can walk to, other restaurants and stuff that you can walk to. So the car becomes less and less important at certain parts of your day, which alleviates traffic as well. In terms of parking that you mentioned, I know Pompano's number one goal regarding parking is to stay ahead of parking. And a good example of that is the parking garage at the beach. That was a little bit controversial when it first started, and I know that not everybody was for it.
Everything is always controversial when they first start.
Until it's pretty and nice.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it was a little bit controversial, and everybody thought we were building it too early. I forgot what the cost was, but it wasn't cheap. And
I'll tell you that they were wrong, because if you go down to Pompano Beach on the weekend, you've got your surface lot that's half grass. Mm-hmm. That is all full. You've got all your parking spots along the road is all full, and then you go to the parking garage and you find out that's full too. So it was a perfect time to build that park.
No, it was, and it's because they did it when they weren't quite ready for it, and that's the point. They like to stay ahead of it. When they first built it, it wasn't necessarily full all the time. We didn't have all the restaurants that we have on the beach now. We didn't have all the shops, the ice cream stores, the different bars and stuff like that. But now it was definitely needed. It was built at the right time. And I think it's because they did stay ahead of it to a certain degree. And I think that in downtown, I know they're trying to do the same thing. I know that there's a new ordinance out there right now, actually, that just passed the city not the city commission, that just passed the planning and zoning board. And I think it still needs city commission approval. But Pompano came up with something to incentivize developers to provide a certain percentage of public parking within their developments. So how that looks like it works is they would offer 2 stories, two additional stories, if the developer provides a certain amount of public parking spaces in the development. Let's say, I think it's 125 minimum or something like that.
Okay.
So let's say it's 125 to 150 spaces, and how that would work is the developer would fund and pay for those parking spaces while they're funding their development.
Right.
Because it's all part of the same parking structure, just maybe the bottom 2 floors would be for public space, and then the floors above that would be for the residential space. And why that's important is, A, that the city doesn't have to come out of pocket spending $30 million building a large parking structure.
Right.
They would actually directly lease it back from the developer. So, and one of the reasons I think it's a good idea, because one engine feeds another. So if you look at parking will feed more redevelopment. And as more redevelopment occurs, the economic benefits from the additional redevelopment will justify the city paying leases on parking.
Sure.
And will justify possible new construction on another parking garage or something like that. So again, one engine feeds the other, but I do think it's a good idea because if the developer's willing to do it, I think they could benefit from it as well. They could maybe utilize the after-hours parking for overflow guest spaces and stuff like that.
Yep.
And I think it would also help alleviate traffic. As opposed to having one large structure with 600 parking spaces, if you had 3 or 4 different locations where everybody was being diverted to different streets, it would help alleviate a potential bottleneck from everybody trying to go in and out at the same time.
For sure. Well, that's they're doing something right, thinking long term, which is exactly what we need to be doing right now.
Agreed.
Okay. If you were to give realtors some essential advice to help sell Pompano Beach, obviously you know Pompano Beach like the back of your hand. So what would that be? What is it that we could tell the consumer on why they need to live in Pompano Beach?
I would say education. I mean, I would say that just like anything you sell, you have to know it backwards and forwards to be able to sell it, right? And Pompano Beach spends a lot of time educating its residents. And they have a lot of public meetings for the residents on items on the agenda, such as the downtown. And I would encourage realtors to go to some of these public meetings. I mean, it's open to the public. Realtors can attend. I would also encourage realtors to go visit the Pompano CRA, the Community Redevelopment Agency.
Sure.
They're very approachable. They love realtors because they know they promote the area. And they're a world of information. So I would definitely recommend that they go visit the CRA and just educate themselves, because in Pompano there's so many levels of opportunity, whether it's for buyers or home buyers, but for the investor. Let's just use investors as an example. There's long-term investments, there's short-term investments, there's investments that are in opportunity zones that are more tax advantageous to the investor. But without educating yourself and knowing every aspect of these investments, you're not going to be able to bring your investor, and especially a savvy investor, who wants you to have all the answers.
Right.
And, if somebody wants a short-term investment, you're going to steer them away from certain areas of the downtown, and vice versa. So if they want a long-term investment, you might take them to the opportunity zone and say, this is everything that's being planned here.
Right.
But I would definitely say education is key.
I think that's great advice, and it seems to be a common thread week after week with what all of my guests are telling all of our realtor members that they need to do is constantly be learning and learn the area that you're working in, whatever farm area that you happen to have. Make sure that you know all of the ins and outs. You want to know all the projects that are going on. You want to know what's happening with redevelopment districts, with the roads, with all the different aspects of the city that you're trying to sell. But going to visit the CRA is actually one thing that I hadn't thought of. And I think that's fantastic advice for any realtor to find out really what's going on and what sort of opportunities are available.
Yeah, and they'll welcome it. I mean, they love meeting with the public, especially realtors, like I said. So
awesome.
Definitely recommend it.
Yeah, that's it. That's not an avenue that I had thought of. Well, I know you're a busy guy, and we're going to let you get back to work. I've got one last question for you. We asked this of all of our guests, with South Florida having so many hidden gems around, whether that be a restaurant, beach, hotel, whatever it might be, anything that is worth checking out in South Florida. So what is a hidden gem that you love that we absolutely cannot miss?
In Pompano?
Anywhere.
In Pompano? Well, I guess besides the beaches in Pompano, which I think are some of the best beaches in South Florida just because of how wide they are compared to some of the other beaches, I'd probably name the event that Pompano is doing the first Friday of every month right now, which is Old Town on Tap.
Yeah.
Because even though a lot of people know about it, there's plenty of people that don't. And, you're living in Pompano and you're right there, so obviously you know about it. But it's drawing 3,000 to 4,000 people on a Friday night. And it's the first Friday of every month. But the reason I think that's somewhat of a gem to someone looking to potentially do business there or potentially move there or potentially, get their clients to go feel how the area is going to be, I think that that's a great start. I mean, because you can go there, you can enjoy the backyard at South one night, you can feel the vibe, you can feel how the vibe's going to be. You have other businesses that are packed that night, such as the Soulful Steep, which is the tea place.
Yep.
They have a salt cave that you can visit. They have street vendors. They have the Old Bailey's the Old Bailey's Hotel that was converted into an art gallery. You can visit the street vendors. So I would think that it's just a great place to visit if you haven't been there. And and even though it's drawing people from outside of Pompano, from other neighboring cities, I think it's going to continue to get bigger and bigger. I mean, if you look at downtown Delray Beach, for example,
Yep.
25 years ago, how they promoted that was they had jazz night the first Friday of every month. And it doesn't happen overnight, but eventually the area was on fire, and it's still on fire. And I think, that's why I would recommend coming to check out Old Town Untapped.
Yeah, I heard about Old Town Untapped years ago and never went. And it was, I think, this past summer was the first time that I went. Obviously, with the pandemic, they weren't having the Old Town Untapped, but I went for the first time, and it's absolutely incredible. I mean, the band was great. If you want to go and hang out with your friends, yeah. If you want to go and hang out with your friends, I mean, you've got beer tents and, multiple outlets where you can have an adult good time. But if you want to go and walk down there with your kids or your grandparents, I mean, people bring out their lawn chairs, and they've got face painting and the craft vendors that are out there, and it's fun
for the whole family. Right?
Yeah. It doesn't matter what your vibe is. You're going to find it at Untapped, Old Town Untapped.
Absolutely.
Well, Adam, thank you very much for being with us.
It's been
a pleasure. Hopefully, we see some pretty amazing things coming out of your companies in the near future in Pompano Beach. And you guys all heard it right here for the first time, straight out of Adam's mouth. So show him some love, show Pompano some love, and we will see you guys right back here next time on RWorldTalk.
Thank you.